Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, I get to sit down with someone who is well known behind the scenes in my industry. Jenn Davis, President of Davisware, a robust software for commercial service companies, joins us right now. Jenn grew up on a farm in Wisconsin, not unlike myself, and her dad was a serial entrepreneur, always with his hands on something. So, needless to say, her blue-collar ties run deep. Because of this, she always had a true appreciation for the trades. In fact, when she was 17 years old, she started Davisware to solve a simple dispatching problem for her brother-in-law's HVAC company. Since then, the business has grown to support several other businesses across the skilled trades industries, employ more than 200 people, and help Jenn to realize all of her passions to help people in, out, and around the industry. She even wrote a book being released this fall called Living Exponentially. So keep an eye out for that. You're going to want to give it a read. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. As always, this show's not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on the word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to rate it, review it, and share it with someone else who might be interested. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Jenn Davis. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Jenn Davis, and she's the president of Davisware, specific software in my demographic, my vertical in particular. Everybody knows what Davisware is. So I'm excited to have her on the show today. Jenn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Josh. It's exciting to be here and be a part of your podcast.
All right. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So Jenn, why don't you, for those of my audience that doesn't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So, the elevator pitch on Davisware that I always talk about is, we're a software product that is for guys in trucks who fix things, guys in trucks who build things, guys in trucks who deliver things. So, very much kind of hardcore in your demographic in terms of the people that are probably on the podcast. So, how do you build technology for that demographic? That's probably a little bit of an anomaly. It all starts with my background. So my husband's family was in the HVAC business and were using a product and liked certain features of it and didn't like other ones, and tasked actually my husband and I to go out and write software to kind of meet their needs. And so we actually started in the HVAC business, writing dispatching software, and it evolved into the food service equipment and petroleum businesses. But, the commonality in all of it is, the handhelds in the field and, kind of the interaction between technicians and technology. And I think that's what keeps it interesting to me, both in my history and then also kind of my people and where I like to be, for sure. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and so badly needed in this industry too, because as we know, there are so many different moving pieces, moving parts, communication, intercompany and externally, all of this stuff really adds up, and it's great to have a solution, to enable and empower that, within this industry and surrounding industries. So what about you personally? Let's talk about kind of, maybe where you grew up and how you got to that point where Davisware entered into the equation.
Right. So I always call myself a unicorn because there's so many pieces and parts. So first of all, Davisware evolved out of, I was only 17 years old when we started the company. So
oh, wow.
We were babies. I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. I'm the sixth of 9 kids. So I always
Where in Wisconsin?
Southwest Wisconsin. So near Platteville, Wisconsin, where the Bears played. So that was
really
big. Yeah. I was born in Iowa, actually. So,
I'm from Kenosha.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I shouldn't say I'm from Kenosha. I spent 10 years of my life
Right.
in 10 plus years, although it felt like 50. But yeah, I'm from southeastern Wisconsin.
Actually, one of our kids went to Carthage for a
Oh, no kidding.
semester. So yeah, he was. Yeah, that was. And actually, I went to college in the same conference as Carthage, so I played volleyball at Carthage quite often.
Oh,
So,
very cool. Small world.
yeah. Yeah, so grew up on the opposite side of the state, on the Mississippi River. My parents were farmers. My dad was actually a serial entrepreneur. He had a transmission business, so my first job that I was paid for was coring out transmissions. So it's definitely very far from where I'm at now, but because of that, I guess I know a lot about cars. So that was useful in life. Yeah, and I was really engaged in my parents' business at a very young age. Working on trial balance worksheets and things that were definitely above my age level for sure. But I just was fascinated by it my whole life. I liked business. I liked doing what we were doing there. And, as I grew up in the business, I learned a lot about business that ultimately really helped in, the building of our own business. So it's pretty fascinating. But yeah, grew up, my high school graduating class was 40 something kids. So a pretty teeny tiny school. And, I spent my share of time back then. We still had shop class and drafting class and all of those things. And loved that part of, I guess, what I did every day when I went to school. So,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Given that you kind of grew up in Wisconsin, I knew I recognized the accent, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. That's really interesting. So, did you have any? I mean, and I'm just curious because your dad with the transmission business, you grew up on a farm. What was your perception of the trades when you were in high school and when you were nearing the end of it?
yeah, it's fascinating because, well, I guess my dad's life, I always looked at him and I thought I would never want to live like he lived because, and I have to apologize. Everything's a farm analogy. I said that, I felt like his life was like being henpecked to death by chickens. Like people were just nagging on him constantly, just never had a moment. And in those small towns, everybody did everything. So it didn't matter that it was a Sunday. If their car was broken down, they were coming to our house. So that was my own perception. Now that lasted about 45 days after leaving home before I got involved in our own business. So I guess that didn't really work out. But, when you grow up in small town America, and I think you recognize that, farmers are, they're kind of they're the first version of the trades, right? They can do everything. They don't hire anybody. They're their own plumbers, their own painters, their own electricians, their own HVAC guys. They did everything. And so I grew up in a world where that was kind of standard protocol. Now it was evolving at that point. There was certainly the emphasis that everybody needed to go to college and leave the farms. And, and now the farms have grown into very large operations and the family farm is really gone. But, I think from my own perspective, I've always had such an appreciation for that. I come from a family who could literally fix anything. I always joke that one of the criteria when I got married, it should have been that he could fix things. Fortunately, he's quite handy because I think I would have gone crazy not having that because, I'm used to somebody that can fix things. And so, for me, I've always had a passion around the trades just because of where I grew up and how I grew up and just the value that I saw that it contributed to the community and to, the greater world. And certainly moving to the city and raising our kids in suburban Chicago, it's just mind-boggling to me how little people are coming out of high school really know about how the world operates. And, my kids are at such an advantage because they were exposed to it in our own, in how we parented for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, how many kids do you have?
10.
There's 10 kids. Holy cow. So 10 different personalities that you've got that you're raising or have raised. So what are you seeing when they come home from school, right? I mean, I'm sure with 10 kids, you're probably super involved with, their education and things like that. So what are you seeing maybe from them or their friends with regard to the trades? Is it one of those things that just isn't talked about a lot? Is it one of those things that they're excited about, or, especially with your mindset, in there? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. So first of all, there is no talk of the trades in the schools, period, end of story. That doesn't exist. And I think it's just tragic. Most of our kids' experience with the trades and their friends have all happened in our garage, right? So, we happen to be on 40 acres, so we have a lot more exposure to it than most. But, it's very tragic that these kids are not getting that exposure as teenagers. And really, it's degrading their ability to be successful because it's closing that door. And I saw it specifically, even before my kids, I saw it with my siblings. My younger brother had the opportunity to go play football in the Big Ten, and probably, honestly, had the skills to be a professional football player. And he just said, I hate school. I don't want to go to school. Went out and bought an excavator, and, he's 3 years younger than me, and he has never stopped playing in the dirt. And he has been extraordinarily successful, probably more successful than all of his classmates. And, but he went a different route. He was very, very firm on the fact that's the direction he was going to go. And I just think that these kids today, the kids that are very motivated, like my brother Jason, aren't being given the opportunity to even think that those doors are open. And from my own perspective, I have seen so many of our customers make, tremendous incomes and have really high quality lives in the trades and building businesses out around the trades. So, I'm a huge fan of it. And I think it's something that we need to think about. How do we bring that back? How do we bring that culture back?
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a lot of good points there. One of the things that I push on frequently is, we're trying to fit everybody into one single definition of success. And there's so many different, everybody has their own version, right? Everybody has their own way of defining what success is to them, or what fulfillment is for them, or what a happy life is to them. Yet we're all pushing, we're pushing all of them into the same direction most of the time, which is a college education. And if we deem that maybe they're not smart enough for a college education, only then are the trades presented as an option, which kind of perpetuates this perception that we've developed as a society that the trades are lesser than, a college degree, which, is the narrative that I'm trying to change, and a lot of the advocates that I speak to are trying to change, because, we could all be in a much better position if we just at least let people know what the trades are, truly what they are, and what kind of opportunities they present. So I want to kind of get back on track here a little bit. So talk to me about after high school. Did you go to college, or did you jump right into the business, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so I did go to college. I spent 2 years at the University of Wisconsin, and then I transferred to North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. So I split my time. Went through a variety of different majors, including education, and I think I was going to do PT for a period, and started in business and then switched around, but ultimately graduated with an education degree, and never used it. I was going to be an elementary school teacher. So instead, I guess I had my own school. I didn't do it professionally, but so that was kind of where my head was at. Now, when I think about it today, I look back on it. My favorite thing to do is to teach people and to mentor people and to get people to grow. So of course it makes sense that I followed that route, and went that direction. But during my entire college career, I was working on the business while I was going to school. I was also a 2-sport collegiate athlete, fun fact. So that was, I played volleyball and ran track. So, and did both of those at the same time. So I was definitely busy, as I always am. So that didn't change when I was younger either.
Always been that busy, huh?
Yeah,
no, that makes a lot of sense where the handstands come in. I hear everybody always talking about how Jenn does these handstands on everything.
Yeah.
So now it's making a little more sense. Oh, that's
I was a gymnast when I was young. Even though I'm tall now, I was a small kid, and I was a gymnast for a lot of years. So that was where they actually started. And I never I never realized all the places I started doing them until people started reposting them, and social media kind of brought to light how often I had done it. And I have thousands and thousands of handstand pictures on every cliff and ledge there is that pretty much I've been to. So
That's awesome. That's kind of a cool niche, though. That's like a signature, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it was my 40th birthday or 45th birthday. One of my friends posted on my Facebook that instead of giving me gifts, everybody to do a handstand. And I got like 250 people did handstands of various different versions. That was so funny. I was like, that was one of the best ever. Like,
Oh, that's fantastic. Now I have to learn to do a handstand so I can join the party, you know?
Right.
So, and it's fascinating to me too that, you know, you recognize now that you love to teach and mentor and help people grow. And as we know that's an important aspect in having a business as well, especially if you're going to be considered the leader of that business, you know, you better be able to, you know, mentor people and, you know, provide them with opportunities for growth. And it's, you know, it's a skill, I think, that I want to call it a fundamental, but I guess it's a fundamental maybe of leadership, right? And business ownership. Did your college education in education help you with that teaching and mentoring process?
You know, honestly, I mean, I would say there was individual teachers and professors that were very impactful. But overarching, no, I think it was just the world I grew up in, right? I had a dad who was a serial entrepreneur, my mom also, but being a farm kid and we were taught at very young ages to be leaders because we didn't have a choice. And so I think that, that became part of the secret sauce to what was going on. And then, I was so young, and one of the things that's probably helped me the most is I don't spend a whole lot of time looking in the rearview mirror. And, and so I think as you're propelling forward and you're always looking forward to achieve more, you have to bring others along with you, right? Like it wasn't possible to do it alone. So I think it came out of just practicality, out of building a business at the ages that we did. And it was bootstrapped. We didn't have parents who certainly could fund us. We didn't have a bank who was going to loan to us. Back then, when you think about technology, a banker would only loan money to companies who had an asset. Well, our assets were in our heads. So,
Yeah.
How do you loan or leverage that? So, I think because of that, it became very collaborative from a very young, from the very infancy of the business that, we worked together with kind of the core group of people and brought them along with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, and to be clear, we're talking about Davisware still, right? You started that when you were super young and had been working on it for a long, long time. So when you first started it, what was the specific problem that you were trying to solve? It was within the trades, you said, right?
Yeah. So my brother-in-law owned an HVAC company in Dallas, and he had a dispatching system that he really liked, but didn't like the products that went around it. So, as you mentioned before, the complexity of service specifically, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and, so you need something that's very robust to kind of drive that. And so he was really looking for some solutions specifically, around inventory and accounting that supported the actual dispatching process. And that was really kind of how it all started, given the fact that I had done accounting in my parents' business. I had some background, there, and took my high school knowledge. And I just understood accounting from a very young age. It was something I liked a lot. And I like rows and columns, so I guess I like order. And so it made sense. And, so we were solving that specific problem. As our customer base grew, then the problem we were solving grew and became different. And, it became about GPS and truck tracking and field technology and, but all of these different technologies, I just have such a passion. And it just, I get so excited when I see the ability in the trades to change those businesses, to fundamentally change and grow those businesses. It's just putting water on seeds, because their businesses are so complicated that when you can reduce complexity in a business, you can really change, the quality of the business, just by adding technology. And that's just such a fun thing. It's super fun to see, contractors and people that have been told through their educational experience that they're lesser than somebody that goes to college, and you see the intellect and the ability to pick things up. I mean, there's just so much intellect that is not tapped into, or that the world doesn't know about, right? That's there. And, I just love it. I love doing it. I love seeing the excitement and the success and the growth of these businesses. And, I feel like I take on a little badge of honor when their businesses grow, right? Because it's like, we were able to take, a dispatcher who could dispatch 6 technicians, and now they can dispatch 10. And, you take a warehouse guy that used to have, a warehouse guy and, 2 guys helping him, and he can now manage 3 warehouses. And, that's really powerful in those businesses. And it's just fun to watch and see it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think you hit the nail on the head too, when you said that there's just so much intellect, because I imagine in the position that you're in, you're receiving input on a daily basis from all of your customers saying, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do that. Hey, you should do this. Hey, why doesn't your software do that? It should. And I'm sure that you probably implemented thousands of those requests based on, all of this intellect that you're gathering from the people that, are supposedly in careers that are second rate to a college education, but it's amazing to me, that all of that can come from the trades, and you can use it in your business to better their businesses. I mean, that's got to be rewarding as hell.
Yeah. It is so rewarding. That's what I said. I get so geeked up over it, because you just see these, what on the outside, it appears to be this simple little HVAC business, or this simple little food service business or plumbing business. And they're not simple at all. And these businesses, these business owners have evolved out of the industry, so they understand it. But being able to scale something like that is really, it's challenging. It's nearly impossible without technology. I mean, it's so difficult to scale something that complex. And so when you can, simplify the business and help them grow it, and you see business owners, there's so many businesses, because their children aren't being taken into the trades, they don't have somewhere to, they don't have the next generation of business. And so what we've really seen is the quantity of newly found millionaires that have come out of the trades, because they started out of high school, they built a business, and now they're selling it to private equity or to, a strategic buyer, and, creating a life that, their friends who went to college certainly didn't get to go experience.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that we should probably, talk about more, just as a general population, right? Is that, when you're in high school and you're getting ready to go to college, at least this was my experience, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do in particular, and I just knew that I wanted to be successful, right? And when you're that age, you equate success with money, right? And there's no other way around it. You don't gain the wisdom that success is much more than money until, you've had it and lost it, probably. But, if we could highlight the fact that if you spend a good portion of your time after high school learning a trade, being able to take that knowledge, create a business, grow that business, scale it, and then sell it, I mean, you could be looking at millions of dollars, by the time it's all said and done. And honestly, depending on the route that you go and the trade that you're in and the market that you're in, I mean, you could be talking about maybe 20 years after high school, 25 years after high school, which if you do the math, I mean, that's not very old. I mean, you can, at that point in your life, you can do just about whatever you want, especially if you've built a company to the point where you can now sell it and you have that freedom. So I think that's important.
And I think that when you're thinking about it also, the competition to get into the trades right now is very non-existent. If I had $1 for every one of our customers that said, I don't have an exit strategy other than to sell. My son went off to college. My daughter went off to, this or that, and even for the kids coming out of high school, who in theory should have, their skill sets lend themselves to going into the trades, they are lost because the trades aren't in the schools. So, I know one of our sons, I think that he would have done very well in the trades, but he doesn't know anything about them because he wasn't exposed to them in high school. And so, in that particular case, he's spending this summer on an internship, ironically, in the trades, and he's going to be a senior in college. So, just because I think that they've never had that exposure, so how would they even know about it? And, that's really the tragedy that's the tragedy and the opportunity, right? Just like COVID, everybody talks about how negative it was. And, for many people, there's a lot of positives out of it. And I think that's how, especially those who are willing to take the risk and consider going this route, there is so much opportunity, so much of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always said, in high school, it's not that the trades, I don't think, are openly bashed on a daily basis, right? It's not that there's hate surrounding the trades. There's definitely not love surrounding the trades, But I once heard that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And the fact that the trades are just not talked about, forgotten about, is almost worse to me,
Right.
because then there's just, it's a whole lot of nothing that people don't know anything about.
It's like they're invisible, right? They don't even. My daughter, ironically, when she was a sophomore in high school, she wrote a paper at her college preparatory school called "Who's Going to Be My Plumber?" And she did this on her own, probably through osmosis, hearing me being really passionate about it. But, and she basically went through this whole rendition of, who is going to be the plumber. And it was remarkable to me. That situation took a kid who was just writing a paper to become a passionate advocate for the trades, because everyone was so like, I don't know, you just call somebody. There's got to be somebody. Click on a site and find somebody. And now, ironically, she's in college in entrepreneurial studies. And one of her considerations is, do I get into the trades? She wants to be an entrepreneur. Who knows? I could have my own plumber.
There you go. No, that's fantastic. It sounds like a great paper. So I have a question about, you said that you talked about how rewarding it was to help these businesses, right? And I don't want you to give any names or anything like that, but I want to know, was there a business in particular that you saw, or multiple businesses maybe, from X dollar amount per year in revenue to now Y dollar amount in revenue? And what was that swing? Because you've been around a long time with this software. I'm curious, kind of, an example of some of that exponential growth that you've seen.
Right. So yeah, the word exponential, that's my word, right? So that's one of the things I focus on. So, I've got a dozen examples of really what you just described. And, specifically, there's probably 3 different examples that I really think about. Actually, there's 4, but, it all depends on what the business's goals are. We've got the one, that started as a $2 million service business when they started with us. They sold for, I think they were at about 120 million in revenue.
Wow.
So you think about the massive growth that came in that business, and they would be the first to tell you that happened on the foundation of the Davisware technology. We've also had another customer, completely different scenario. When we came into their business, they were probably about, I would say, somewhere in 10 or 12 million, so a little bit more established in their annual revenue. They're about $100 million business today over the course of the 18-year relationship that we've had with them. But they were really looking to structure their business to be a multi-generational business. They had a daughter that wanted to come into the business. And so rather than structuring it to grow and sell, they were looking at it to grow and scale and make it an ESOP. So, ESOPs, basically, they were converting it to an employee-owned business. And so I thought that was also remarkable too, because it wasn't just, for the growth, and technology is designed for the growth and success of a business. And, you mentioned before, most people think of success as wealth, and success really is universally defined by each person, as their own goals, or each organization as their own goals. And in that case, they were looking at a business that could be multi-generational. And certainly today, kids aren't prepared to be in a multi-generational business because we've segregated our work lives and our home lives so much that, it's just not the way that the world is designed right now. So.
That's a fair point. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, you're obviously a super busy person, right? You've got 10 kids and, all the energy in the world. And, so let's talk about, kind of segregating that work life,
Well, when I hit my snooze this morning 5 times, I think there's days I don't snooze. I don't know what that was about. But,
you had this podcast today, right? You're just like, oh, I don't want to do it.
I'm not quite.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So no, so I'm actually, I think you're aware that I'm in the process of writing a book that's going to be released this fall on exponentiality in life and in business. And one of the things, I've been asked for so many years, how in the world do you do it? And, and like I mentioned earlier, I haven't looked in the rearview mirror a ton. I kind of am always looking forward. And when you get me to pause for a hot minute and look back, I think, what I saw was a pattern of thought processes, around my core beliefs that I wanted to genuinely make a difference in the world. I wanted to contribute, outside of my family. I wanted to be an engaged parent and, an empathetic owner to a business. And all those things were really important as my core beliefs. But really what it came down to was what I dubbed as the 7 elements of an exponential mindset. And those elements came alongside of the thought process of, we are taught in life that we have a home life and a work life, but that actually isn't true, because unless you know something different than I know, we actually only have one life, right? Like there's just one. And, when the world evolved from, the colonial days where the blacksmith lived in the back of his shop and the farmer lived on his farm and the shopkeeper lived above his shop, there was no segregation between home life and work life. And when the advent of suburbs and mass transit and all of these things happened, it began to segregate those two. And what people don't realize is when that segregation happened, we created an artificial boundary of 8 to 5. And if you're working past 5 o'clock, you're a workaholic. And if you're talking to your kid at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're a slacker. When really, that just isn't true. It's not compatible. It's not copacetic with being successful in life. And it creates so much stress because the working moms don't feel like they can take the call from the sick kid. And, the dads don't feel like they can go out for drinks with a client. Or I guess that was kind of sexist, but whatever. It's that you don't feel like you can go do what needs to get done. So I think one of the things I focused on in my career was just that, it's called modus vivendi. And it was a term that I found that basically was talking about when, warring sides, or if there's, warring sides or conflicting sides, when they just decide to have peace. So think about during World War II, when Christmas Eve, everybody just said, we're just going to pause for tonight, stop fighting and just enjoy Christmas. And I talk about modus vivendi in terms of the two sides of your lives and making them copacetically live together. And so that's a lot of what we did together and how I was able to do that. I don't know that we ever had a vacation that didn't include customer visits, or still to this day. My kids have had internships at many customers' offices, businesses. We've had many customers in our personal lives. Our office building, the building that I'm in, is right next to my kids' school. And we did that so that they could be one and the same. And what that did is it gave me exponential opportunity to be successful in a way that other people just couldn't figure out how to do. And it was really just that simple.
Wow, that resonates so much with me, the way that you just articulated that, and because it's the truth. That's how I've built my company as well, and it helps to have a family that's understanding in that and that adopts that mindset as well. Because, like you said, it having too much of that work-life balance here and here, it creates that separation, right? And and it stresses both sides. I've tried it, that's how I know, right? Because that's what you're told you're supposed to do, is you're supposed to have your personal life here where you don't worry about work, and you're supposed to have your work life here where you're not worried about your personal stuff, and we hear it all the time. But man, you're right. It does. It creates so much stress because you're always thinking about work over here, or you're always thinking about your personal life over here, and there's just no intertwining. So it wasn't until, I actually was able to make the two work together in synergy that I was able to really find that fulfillment, in what I did. So I'm super excited to read your book. When does it come out?
Yeah, in September. So it's gonna come out right before our show season and our user conference and everything.
Oh, right on time.
Right on time.
That's
so
awesome.
A little pressure to get it done. And I think that's another thought process. And I saw you move your hands, and actually I'm gonna grab something. So this little guy has been floating with me literally since college. His little strap broke and I had to get another one. But, when people think about balance, you think about everything being in equality. And the definition of balance actually includes sway.
Yes.
And so what most people don't think about is that there is always going to be sway. So, in 2004, my husband, we decided we needed to outsource to India, and which was really hard for two farm kids from Wisconsin to think about outsourcing our business, right? But what it did was it created more American jobs because we were able to grow our business and outsource the pieces that we could outsource. But that year, Dan spent 212 days in India. It didn't feel very balanced. I can tell you that. I was definitely carrying a lot of water myself, but that was at the time the business needed that. And on the flip side, when we were having kids or coaching sports, and there was the opposite side to that. And I think it's being able to see the opportunities of when sway and balance have to go together. And that little guy, he can sway a long ways and still be in balance before he falls off. And right, sometimes we fall off, right? I mean that happens too. But it's just recognizing that that's part of the grander process. For sure.
Yeah, I would argue that's also the definition of synergy, right? Up and down together. And you're right. And I make two comparisons with that, right? Number one is we often talk about being in the trades and how much work it is, right? Because it's hard work. And I always say, if you're afraid of hard work, then the trades isn't your problem. You've got other problems. You got to work hard in anything that you do. But in some trades, I mean, you're talking about 40, 50, 60, 80-hour weeks sometimes. But when you look at it like that, right, when you call that balance a sway, I did it. When I was in the field, I mean, I'd put in 70 to 90 hours a week because it was just me and my dad running service. And that was the sway, right? It was very, very difficult, to work that much. But now it got me to where I am today and helped me balance out. So that's the first association that I make. The second association is the pendulum that we talk about with the skilled trades in general, and how they're thought about, the perceptions of the trades. There was a point in time when the trades were coveted and they were an honored profession. Then college came in, right? And the narrative changed entirely. The pendulum swung in the complete opposite direction. And I have all the faith in the world that pendulum is going to swing the other way, because in my opinion, balance always finds a way. It's just a matter of how much time it takes to do so, Yeah. So those are the associations I draw from that. But I love the analogy there. I think it's great. It makes me want to read your book even more. I can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah, well, good. I'll even sign a copy.
Let me get a pre-release. I'll proof it for you. I'll give you a review on it.
Perfect.
So anyway, I can't believe we've already been talking for like 45 minutes. That's unbelievable. But so I want to ask you a question. I love to ask everybody, especially when we're on these topics and stuff. We talk about success. We talk about the definitions of success and how that changes, from one point in your life to another. and you have found in talking with you, you've found success in what you do, serving the skilled trades with your software. But I want to know specifically how you define success. You've written a book, and you've built this incredible business. But what is it that makes you feel successful?
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. When I was 17 years old and graduated from high school, I wrote my goals in life, and I actually unearthed it just fairly recently. One of my goals in life was by the age of 50 to stop working for money and start working to change the world. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting one. So, what do I define as success? I define as success the ability to make the world a better place. To help people. I love to help people. If you're moving or chopping lumber, like chopping wood, those are my two favorite things to help people do. I'm the friend they call. So I like to help people. I like to see people grow. I've coached probably close to 1,000 kids over my coaching career, and I love seeing people level up. And expecting them to meet me at my level. And so, when I see success, I see my success is measured by how successful the people that follow me are. And that's how I'm defining what I deem as success, and that success comes with, riches in what I get to do. I can drive my schedule. I can work from home. I can work from here. There's a lot of perks that come with that success, that came with hard work. And actually, that was one thing, Josh, I wanted to say to you. You were talking about all of the hours and all the hard work that you put into your business. But, I challenge people to think about, name one single thing you've ever done in life that wasn't hard that you were actually proud of. And people don't think of it like that, so when you're challenged with hard things, those are the things you're going to look back on and be the most proud of. So, that year when I had 5 kids and a brand new newborn, and I had to move into a house and move an office, and Dan was gone for 3/4 of the year, that was really hard, really, really hard. But I'm proud of it because it drove where we became. So, I think, a successful life for me is being able to look back and be proud at the hard work that I put together, and just making the world a better place, helping our customers grow their businesses, and hopefully producing successful, good kids in the mix too. I'd like that also. That'd be a bonus.
That's fantastic. What a great definition of success. And to your point, you're absolutely right. Anything, my dad used to tell me this all the time. He says, nothing in life worth having comes easy. And that is the God honest truth. Whether you're in the trades, whether you're in college, whether you're, in a white collar career or doing anything, it's going to require hard work. But, if you keep in mind what you brought up earlier with the sway and the balance, that kind of helps, I think, and will help my audience in particular, keep things into perspective, right? Because when you're working that hard, sometimes it takes a very long time, and you can feel burned out, and you need that reminder. You need to know that, that sway is going to be worth, or the juice is going to be worth the squeeze, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you think about these young people today, they are all taught that the golden goose is easy, like things are what you want. And yet, my most rewarded and fulfilled students that I've ever coached are cross-country runners. Having little 5th graders run cross-country, that's hard, and so when you think about that, you think about the college kids and, the high school kids, they're just being taught to look for the easy route. And that's really, the kiss of unhappiness. That's, it's not what you're thinking. And so, you want to look for not necessarily what's hard, but you want to be willing to invest in what's hard. And I think that also drives you to the idea of something else that I talk about in my book is called goal-driven focus. And it's not, most people say, I set up a goal and then, I'll go execute on it. But most people, what they actually do is they set themselves a goal and then they deviate the goal, because we all try to cause ourselves to fail. And so staying focused on the original goal. So if your goal is to be a business owner by age 25, don't deviate it to adding a bunch of adjectives that now it has to be a successful business or a profitable business, or you said you wanted to build a business, and go build a business. And then you can add a new goal from there. But if you allow yourself those incremental success stories, you'll stay focused to the end line. But if you don't, then you feel like I'm a failure because my business wasn't profitable at age 25. Well, my business wasn't profitable at age 25, and I'm sure you could probably tell a similar story when you were working 90 hours a week. There's that,
Absolutely.
That's the way it is.
Unbelievable insight and advice, Jenn. Thank you so much. So is there anything else that you want to tell the audience, or anything else that you want to say or squeeze in before we end this episode?
Yeah, I think it's just, not that college is bad and not that the trades are bad, but listening to your heart and really thinking about what skills, what motivates you, what inspires you, and go do that. And you will find success in whatever it is that you're doing if you're going and doing the things that inspire you. And I think that's probably what's being lost most in translation, to young people today, is they're all being told what to do instead of listening to the voice that should be the loudest, which is, from inside of them.
Absolutely. And I would just add on to that point too, that, don't take your passions at face value either. There are passions that you can find in the practical work, which is what I did. There's nothing fun about, being elbow deep in fryer grease every day. That's not a passion of mine. But once that fryer is fixed and I see the joy come across the owner's face, and that he can cook his wings, he can run his business, he can sell his product, that's where my passion lies. And I think that the same can be said for a lot of other careers out there. So look deeper to find that passion.
Absolutely. And for me, my passion was helping people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I thought it was coaching. I thought it was teaching. I thought it was all these, but it was really just helping people.
Yeah. And you're doing that a million different ways now. Look at that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, Jenn, where can people find you?
So we can be found Davisware's website, www.davisware.com. The book coming out is Living Exponentially, so same tag. You can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and soon to be TikTok. I heard that's where I'm going next. So.
All right, we'll keep an eye out. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Josh. It was great catching up.
Likewise. Take care.